Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Full Court Press. As you see today, we are joined by a special guest to my right, top right, I guess, Austin Krell, a Sixers beat writer for the Painted Lines. That's correct, right?
That would be me. That's what I do. I cover the biggest enigma in all of basketball.
Well, the Heat aren't far off. So, I mean, both seasons are done. Ariel also in the top left corner waiting on Marco. He'll get here when he gets here. But we do have a special episode today because typically we talk with a Heat lean, but we're graced by the presence of Austin today. So we're going to talk about the Sixers. We're not going to be dancing on graves with the Sixers because the Heat have been slandered for the last 2 weeks. It's just nice to have another team receiving some sort of hate.
By the way, well-deserved hate. I can't sit here and defend them. They have absolutely dug their own graves.
They did, and it was crazy because they were heavy favorites. There was a lot of people that were just completely writing the Hawks off, and the Hawks showed up. Credit to them, but I think this is more so that the Sixers really just imploded on themselves because that series should have been done in 5. But I mean, Austin, what was your reaction watching that game in Game 7? Because personally watching it, I expected the Sixers to come out with it. I didn't see a way they would lose at home. What did you think when it was happening? Because it was just a slow death down the stretch.
Well, for me, and I've been writing this and I've been saying this endlessly, but the playoffs are such an unforgiving environment when you make mistakes. And you can make even micro level mistakes, like a turnover here or there, a poor decision, and it can have ramifications across an entire series. The Sixers didn't do that. No. They blew a 26-point lead in the second half in their own building and lost the game. So that was unforgivable. Not just like from a standpoint of evaluating them, but also like when you're reading the verdict of your playoff death. That's going to be what is at the forefront is you blew a 26-point lead at home. That is at the core of what happened. So Game 7 comes around. Sure, they got to that point. I didn't imagine them losing 3 at home in the series to a team that was the 5 seed, but they did. But what it came down to was it was so hard for them to score points against a defense that wasn't really that good. I think the Hawks finished 18th in defense, which was to the credit of Nate McMillan. He finished better under him. I think they were 21st when he came in, and they finished at 18th, so that was better. But it should not have been that hard to score. But it apparently it is pretty hard to score when one of your 5 starters, one of your 3 best players, ostensibly they say, is actively making it harder for you to score. Like Ben Simmons on the court and made it actively harder for the Sixers to score because the Hawks had absolutely no reason to respect him at any location, and they were saying, well, we're going to help off of him and go make sure that Seth Curry can't peel off the screen. We're going to go kind of like flirt with Joel Embiid in post-ups and in face-ups and make him kind of uncomfortable. So Ben Simmons made it impossible for them to score. And it was very clear that when they couldn't pull away with it early and they just couldn't gain any separation, that it was going to be an uphill battle the entire night.
Yeah, it was really painful to watch their fourth quarter offense, specifically the fourth quarter, this entire series. It's crazy how different the regular season is compared to the playoffs because the playoffs is a whole nother monster. I mean, Gallinari was playing the same type of coverage that Brook Lopez was playing on Bam in the first series, and it's Danilo Gallinari on Ben Simmons. Like Ben Simmons should be able to take him to the rim every single time if he wants to, but I digress. Anyways, in the bottom left, welcome Marco Romo, finally with us today. So welcome, Marco. Ariel.
Sir.
Do you have any questions for Austin regarding the Sixers? So I know you specifically of the 3 of us like to troll Sixers fans in a big way.
I don't blame you.
Listen, I've moved past that because the ending to the Heat season has probably humbled me to some extent. As far as questions go, I feel like, why was it specifically so difficult for the Philadelphia 76ers to score? in this series, and specifically down the stretch of games, right? Because they would build up these massive leads in games. I believe it was 5 and 4, if I remember correctly, specifically in game 5 when they were up 20 something in the second half. And then everything just goes out the window. They're not able to get buckets down the stretch, and the Hawks just get back into it. So why was it so difficult? Specifically, why was it so difficult for them to score down the stretch?
So, like, there's so many different ways to put it. I think like the easiest way to condense it and make it make sense really is like, okay, what's the job of a point guard? Point guard is supposed to be able to break down your defense with dribble penetration and, kick it to guys, make plays, or score it himself. And so that's all fine and dandy, except when your point guard is literally not looking at the basket, it's pretty predictable as to what he's going to do. He's going to pass the ball. So no one's kind of playing up on him. So as soon as Ben got into his whole funk, they essentially had no half-court offensive creation, and it was all very ad-libbed. It was very like, we need to run ATO plays basically to have a chance to score or give it to Embiid. But like in game 5, like they're up by 26 points, and sure, that's great. Like it should have never have fallen the way that it did. But when you look at the fact that your main source of offense outside of Joel Embiid dominating everybody was, okay, we're going to go run like a flare screen action for Seth Curry to come off of a screen and hit a 3. That was their entire thing. Like, it was just, we're putting the keys in putting the ball in Seth Curry's hands to try to create our offense. That's not going to work for you. like it's like, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
And so that was really like what it came down to, is they had absolutely no one who could put the ball on the floor to create offense for them off of dribble penetration. And as soon as Ben went into his annual playoff funk that he goes into, it was death. Granted, even his worst playoff moments in the past would have been like, oh, this is revolutionary. This is great. Like he's fine. That was how bad he was this series. He made his old version of himself in the playoffs look like, okay, we can do this. We can work with this. This is fine. It was that bad.
So
yeah,
I actually have a follow-up question to that. Do you feel like, Austin, like it's a playoff funk, or is his style of play and his unwillingness to even look at the basket, forget about shoot the ball with any sort of effectiveness, but even look at the basket, is it just that he is detrimentally flawed in that he can't be effective in playoff setting basketball? And can he improve on that?
I say it's a funk and not like a trend, because like it isn't like he was in a funk all season long, although he kind of had ups and downs. It's more like the trend says that he's a top 25-ish player in the regular season most times. Yeah. And then the playoff comes around and he's like, well, what the hell is this guy? This is not Ben Simmons. And so the funk is like he coasted the regular season, he's fine, and then boom, playoffs hit, and it's like he's like a shell of himself. So that's, in a sense, that it's a trend over year. Yes, it is kind of what he is, but in the sense of like the short-term timeline of he's fine, and then boom, he's gone. Is it sort of a funk in depending on how you view it, but the only way he's going to get better. This isn't something that's going to go away until he makes improvements that are necessary, because he's afraid of getting fouled, so he doesn't want to attack the basket, and therefore, if he's not attacking the basket, he's not looking at the rim. He's not even giving the hint that he's going to try to score. So when that happens, you have to look at it like you have to make improvements, or not only are you going to. This isn't just going to be a cyclical occurrence. This is going to be something where you might not make it past your next contract, because what value do you have if you can't be on the court, in the playoffs in the second round? Like that's great. You can sell teams. You can sell the Chicago Bulls, the Sacramento Kings, the Orlando Magic. So many different teams that don't make the playoffs usually in the last couple of years. You can sell them on like, hey, this guy can help you get to the second round of playoff. That's great. How are you going to sell anybody on he can help you get past that hump? That's the problem.
Nope. It's not going to happen. Right now, it's not going to happen. And I want to get into this Ben Simmons value and trade dilemma, because it is a big question, because Ben Simmons before the season, if you said Ben Simmons is going on the trade market, that's a player who's worth 4 firsts, 3 firsts, and a good player, like a superstar player headliner. Like that's the type of player that you probably could have gotten for Ben Simmons. And now, I mean, you're seeing some disrespectful names thrown in trades with Ben Simmons. Like there's some people that are just doing him wrong. I understand he played horribly, but there still is, like Austin said, those teams that don't really make the playoffs, there's a ton of value in getting a player like Ben Simmons. So what I want to ask you, or first I want to throw some numbers at you because I actually thought this was pretty interesting. So in theory, 4 shooters around Ben Simmons is what works, right? Similar to what the Bucks did with Giannis. Like you want to get 4 guys that can shoot, space it out, play 5 out, and Ben can drive if he wants to, right? So that's what has worked, or the blueprint. So this year, I thought Daryl Morey actually did a fantastic job of getting those shooters around him. So you look at the 4 starters outside of Ben Simmons. This is the regular season. They shot a combined 40.9%. They on 17.6 attempts from 3 in the regular season. That is the 4 starters. That is Seth Curry, Danny Green, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid. In the playoffs, they actually elevated their shooting between those 4 combined. I think it was 12-game sample size. They shot 44.7% on 17.9 3-point attempts a game. So it's just crazy because what situation could be better for Ben Simmons? Like this was the perfect situation. This was the team. He's going against Danilo Gallinari, Kevin Huerter, John Collins. There wasn't DeAndre Hunter to stop him. It's unbelievable.
That talks about that. Like DeAndre Hunter didn't even play in the series.
X factor. He's huge. He's so good defensively.
Didn't even play in the series. They had 2 lottery picks from a draft or 2 ago that didn't even play, and you lost in 7. They would have lost in 5 or 6 if Hunter had played. It's damning, it's confounding, it's jarring, and yet it's not exactly unexpected. And this is people will tell you I have been the most religious Ben Simmons. Look at his upside. Look at what he does at his best. And I can't sit here as a reporter and as a writer in good faith and say no, this is something that can be fixed. Like this is going to take an internal devotion from Ben to be better and to say either I'm going to improve in these areas and I'm not going to be afraid of implementing them in games, or I'm going to be willing to accept that I'm a power forward and play off ball, because you just can't be you can't be in this spot and have just shut off the way that he shut off. Now, I will say this, in his defense, I think there were some things going on behind the scenes that contributed to this, and I think there have been some, things that have boiled over from his personal life into work. And I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, even if they don't want to hear it because he's a $30 million athlete. But I do think that it's not easy because he's a human being. Like he's a kid. He's a day younger than me. And when all is said and done. So I mean, it's in that sense, I get it. But at the same time, it's like, bro, this is 5 years. You've been in the league 5 years. If we're clinging to this, look how great he is defensively, he's gotten better there. That's a nice blanket and a nice shield for saying the reality is you haven't gotten better. Yeah. It's just the reality. Mm-hmm. And I'm not even someone who's the most passionate, Ben has to shoot jump shots. I don't believe he does because I think he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he can get to the rim when he wants to. Giannis can't shoot. Giannis shouldn't shoot. He does shoot. He shouldn't shoot. But Ben just he can't finish. His finishing around the rim is suspect at best. He finishes with his right hand, but he shoots left. What is it's the most bizarre thing ever. And yet it's not even the most bizarre thing of the process era, because they had a guy who was a number 1 pick who literally got the yips.
That is one of the most inexplicable things. I think in recent NBA
he was next up. Listen,
and he was supposed to be the guy that helped alleviate Ben Simmons.
Yes, stuff. Yeah. Fultz was he was so much potential, and it really, really fell apart. But I do want to ask this question, and we'll go round table here. We'll start with Marco, because Marco's been awful quiet in that bottom left. Marco, if you were the Sixers, who is the absolute worst player, assuming that you look at this offseason and you say you have to trade Ben Simmons? Who's the absolute worst player that you would trade Ben Simmons for if you were the Sixers? And we'll ask this question all the way around, so you guys get to think about your answers.
Oh, wow. I was actually listening to something earlier where they were, I don't know, kind of brainstorming a bunch of Sixers trades. I heard Pascal Siakam drop, CJ McCollum. Everybody's mentioned CJ McCollum at this point. D'Angelo Russell is probably the lowest name I heard until I heard Colin Sexton. And I'm like, okay, that's a little too low even for me, who I'm not even that high on Ben Simmons. But I think his value is not depreciated that much to where you're just trading him for D'Angelo Russell plus Malik Beasley, which is the kind of deal that I heard. I don't buy that. I think Sixers fans as a whole would have a different mindset still. They're not trying to get fleeced by anybody. Daryl Morey's not.
Oh no, they are. They are ready to trade Ben.
Well, that's reactionary Twitter, but
Yeah.
like I feel like people like you, Austin, who are level-headed and they're calculated in their approach. I mean, it's no one's that kind of knows what they're talking about is completely jumping ship. But at the same time, you look at that contract and you say, if this kid does not get better throughout the duration, he's going to be a 29-year-old making like $36 million, and he's going to be a complete liability in the playoffs. So it is an interesting conundrum, but I agree. I wouldn't trade him for Colin Sexton.
I think to a certain extent, Philly fans will come down to their senses. The good Philly fans, I put it that way. Not the fans that were out on the court throwing stuff. They'll realize that you're still going to have to get value back, even maybe get some picks out of it, at least like 2 first. That's good enough. For some Philly fans, I would imagine. That's probably where my head would be at. Is getting at least a decent haul of picks if you can't find a A-level type of star. I think the CJ McCollum thing, I've been a fan of that for forever. I want him to be the Draymond to Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, if he puts his mind into being a short roll guy, which he really hasn't been. He's been the ball handler. He needs to be a short roll guy like Draymond is and be the defensive anchor of teams. And I guess that's where, if I were a Philly fan, I would probably be my head at in terms of getting value back. But these things are fluid as hell. They can change very rapidly.
Yeah. So Ariel. So Marco, you drew the line at D'Lo and Beasley. Was that it?
Yeah, that's probably where I draw. I think that even then you probably attach. If I'm Minnesota, you probably have to attach a first round pick.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd have to attach a first round pick and maybe like a stake in the franchise. D'Angelo Russell is. I looked at the stats because I remember I heard it somewhere, but I couldn't pinpoint where. So I looked at the stats myself. I think he had one of the worst net rating differentials off the court or on the court for the Timberwolves. And they were like the worst team in the league, arguably. So that makes him one of the worst players in the league in a lot of ways this season. He's a chucker. His defense is something. I wouldn't trade Ben for D'Angelo Russell. Now, a year ago, after like he had his awesome season last season, you probably would have said like, okay, you could make him the focal point of a deal for like Damian Lillard if you requested out of Portland.
Mm-hmm.
Still might be able to do that. I don't think you can anymore, but you still might be able to say like in a vacuum it wouldn't work obviously, but Daryl Morey might say, well, like, hey, like Damian Lillard isn't going to win anything here and in Portland, and maybe you can you can sweet talk him into saying I want out of Portland, and then maybe that is something you can do. But it takes a lot of other factors are going to have to play into this. Mm-hmm. Really, what you're going to have to get buy into is he's 24, which is as long as Ben Simmons has been in the league, and as long as there's been scrutiny of him, he's still only 24. There is room for him to grow. It's just going to be a concerted effort on his end. You have to the work that the Sixers have to do in building his trade market up again is you can play him off ball.
Can I ask a question really quick? Can his value be built up during the regular season? Because we know what he brings on a night-to-night basis, whether it is slightly inconsistent from an effort perspective. But I feel like whatever he does in the regular season, it's come to the point where it's going to be null and void until it comes to the postseason. If he shows up in the postseason, then is what's gonna raise his value. But do the Sixers have time? Because Joel is absolutely dominant. So there's a window there with Joel. Do they wait until Ben Simmons recoups value for another year? It's really interesting what Morey has to deal with right now. It really is.
Yeah, it's funny. Like today, he had his post game or had his exit presser, and like the guy straight up asked him, I was like, "This was too hard for you guys to score in the playoffs. What do you have to do? Like is that one move or multiple moves?" And he was basically, well, it's hard to calculate, yada yada yada. But I think number one, like I got the sense that watching the game on Sunday, and then Joel's comments after the game, that Joel has given him as much support and as much time to figure it out as he can. But now it's like, how many times is this guy going to cost me a playoff series or hamper us in a playoff series before we move ways? And Joel is completely justified in that. Joel put his body on the line. He's played his butt off, every single time he's been available on the court. And after a certain point, like Joel has to start saying, like, this guy is in my way. And that's what it's literally kind of down to. But I think there is a world where Morey can sell Ben Simmons can sell a team on Ben Simmons, like a team that hasn't been to the playoffs, like the Bulls, a team, Sacramento, just for example, hasn't been in the playoffs in forever. Hey, this guy can quarterback you in the regular season to a playoff berth and a second round appearance. And maybe a team that maybe there are a dozen teams or more in the league that are so desperate for a playoff appearance that they can talk themselves into, okay, well, we can figure out the rest of the way, but this guy can get us to this point. And I think like so much of it is Ben's issues are coming out because he can't be the lead ball handler. If you get pieces around the court that can take the ball out of his hands and can create shots, I think you can alleviate some of that stuff and maybe fix him to an extent. I still think you can maybe fix him in Philly. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly. I think Ben Simmons' chances of becoming a really good player are much better elsewhere, or a really good playoff player, if that's possible for him right now. Ariel.
Sir.
Who is the worst player, if you were the Sixers, that you would trade Ben Simmons for?
So real quick before I get to that, we missed a dono earlier from Michael Regalado for $4.99. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. He says, hear me out. Levine to Miami for Herro, Precious, Goron, 24 and 25 first-round picks if unlocked, and we sign Kyle Lowry or sign Duncan. Listen, I'm with it, but
you need Levine to request a trade specifically to Miami.
The problem is, number one, you can't move 24 and 25 because of the Stepien rule. You'd have to get your picks unlocked from OKC, in which case you're going to have to send them something because they know they hold the keys to Miami being able to use first-round picks in any trades. So there's that. Furthermore, like Gad said, Levine has to ask out, or the Bulls have to decide they want to blow it up. And I don't know if Tyler Herro is really the guy they want to replace him with. So, but sticking to the Sixers stuff, as far as Ben Simmons goes.
I do have a question for you guys. As some of the people who watch Tyler Herro very closely.
Yes.
What happened?
Nothing happened. The team, in my opinion, all season long, this team had been, I don't want to say they were Adam Barai, Ben Simmons for Jared Dudley. I don't know about that one. You might have to throw in a first. But as far as what happened with Tyler Herro, I just think that a little bit more emphasis and more responsibility was put on his shoulders earlier in the season in terms of being like a lead ball handler, because he showed some real flashes of that in the bubble. And frankly, he just wasn't quite ready for it. I also think that the shortened off season meant that he came back essentially the same player that he was last season, and he didn't really get a chance to improve in the off season like he normally would with a longer, more time with the training staff in the developmental program and in summer league and all of that stuff. And you know what? He dealt with some injuries along the way, and I think that kind of derailed his season. His numbers were better before he got hurt mid-season, and then he came back, and the three-point jump shot, more than anything, was the biggest detriment this season because he shot like 39% from three last season on 5.5 attempts or something. and he was down right like lower 30s for the majority of the season before he kind of
picked up like 31% for a good chunk, and then he got up to what, 36, I believe.
I think he finished at 36. Yeah, so I think it was a combination, an amalgamation of a bunch of different things that just kind of didn't work out for him. It was kind of an imperfect storm of a season for him. I do think he'll get better with more, just standard NBA, getting an off season, working with the developmental staff, just growing as a player, learning the game a little bit more. I am down on him a little bit, but I just think it was a tough season for him for those reasons.
So do you guys like believe those rumors that he got distracted by the stuff off the court, or like the fame?
I don't know.
It's very easy to do in Miami. Like I think it'd be very easy to do that in Miami.
Like he's dating a supermodel. He's a 21-year-old kid making millions of dollars in Miami. So would I be shocked if he was maybe not 100% focused when he feels like he's not playing up to par and he just wants to take his mind off on other things? No, but then again, I don't really concern myself with what players do off the court as long as they're showing up and going to work. So, I mean, if you're not doing anything illegal, what I can't really judge a man on what he does off the court.
Some of those outfits were illegal.
Yeah. Tyler Herro, he's got some interesting fashion choice, as do a few of the Heat players, but it's okay. So I feel like we've talked at length about the Sixers. Let's get into some NBA playoffs. Austin, I mean, if you want to join us in this – oh, Manny, you have a question.
Yes, Austin, thank you so much once again for joining us. So my quick thing is this. I am an Eagles fan. I'm not a Sixers fan, so I listen to 94 DIP religiously, right? And so, it's in a way I can pulse the fandom of the city, because I would probably compare this to the 02-03 Eagles when they lost to the Bucks, when we all thought they were going to make the Super Bowl, and then Rondé had that pick six and whatever. So having that moment happen on Sunday, it brought me back to that moment as an Eagles fan when I witnessed it. Would you probably say, knowing how the NBA landscape was, no LeBron, Nets are out, like this had to be it, right? This was the major opportunity that Sixers fans have been waiting for such a long time, probably decades. Would you probably say this ranks up there as one of the most huge collapses ever in Philly sports?
So I'm only 24, going 25. So
thank God.
I can't say like with like any kind of respect to the past that this is the worst, one of the worst ever. I just don't know. Now, this is certainly the worst collapse I've ever witnessed in my lifetime in the city. And I would also say that not just the series, but that Game 5 was easily the most scarring memory of my years watching Philadelphia sports. And it was easily the worst collapse I've ever seen. Now, was this the year? So far, this was the year, but I mean, we see the league shift every offseason. So it's so hard to like say that they'll never have a better chance. But when all is said and done, this certainly may be the best chance, but it's hard to predict right now.
Yeah,
because Daryl Morey is a gunslinger.
Yeah.
The league, the Nets are going to get healthier, but the Sixers could also get better. The rest of the league could get better. Sixers could get worse. I mean, there's so many different dynamics here, but to date, this is certainly the worst.
Yeah. And then just one last thing on this. I mean, I guess it was quite clear for all Sixers fans when Ben decided to pass the ball up instead of dunking it, right? Like that's just one. I'm so sorry, I gotta bring it up.
Manny, you're rehashing nightmares right now.
No, that was like the culmination of
right.
Of everything
Out of
that
all
had
the
gone
things
wrong.
that happened, you do mean to tell me you're not strong enough to take it to the rim? That's one. That right there, I thought made all Philly fans say, you know what, screw this, I'm done. And then when Joel goes up on the podium on post, and he clearly gets asked, when do you think the game was lost? And he mentions the play without mentioning Ben. There is just no way Ben Simmons is on this team anymore, man.
That's what I didn't tweet this out, but I basically thought to myself, I texted my buddies, the people I work with, like, that was the dagger. That was because he's essentially saying, how much longer can I do this for? Like, how many more times do I have to put us in a good spot only for him to take it away? So that was the moment where I said, now that was the very end. Yeah. That was that. There's no coming back from that. So I think it would take a pretty big gargantuan effort by the Sixers to reconvince Joel that they can coexist still. Mm-hmm. But I think also like there's something for to be said for like in the moment you're very frustrated, you're sad,
Got you. And then one final question from the Sixers, I promised. Does Doc Rivers return?
Everything that I've heard privately suggests that he will. And I mean, it's the first year of a 5-year deal. I personally, I get everyone wants to blame Doc because he didn't have a great series, but I also think that no one could have done a better job at how do you even react? Where do you start when the guy that's been your point guard all season just says, well, I'm going to shut down like a PlayStation controller and just stand in the corner. Yeah. I'm not going to do anything. Like, how do you adjust to that? And like, you can put put somebody else in, look down the bench. Who are the options? Like you're going to put it, they give it to Tyrese Maxey. It worked for one game. Shake Milton is your best guess any given night. There was no other option. And so, and then beyond that, your second unit, your bench players, you're playing a guessing game. There's no consistency there. So
there was nobody off the bench that can probably get you consistent scoring either, right? So then everything had to be Embiid on one leg, right? Which is so hard to watch as a fan. Yeah,
right. So like, ask yourself fairly, like, what could Doc have done? I don't know.
I think though also it's just a track record him as a coach, right? It just doesn't help him out. Right? His only championship was with 3 Hall of Famers, and everything else wherever he's been, he's just collapsed.
4 straight Game 7 losses. I think Doc definitely has that. That's really why the rumors or people are saying fire Doc because of what's happened in the past. But like you said, I don't know if you can really put this all on Doc. There's just so much blame to go around pretty much all over the Sixers.
Joel wasn't perfect. Joel averaged 7 turnovers per game over the last 3 games.
Turnovers were a big issue. Like he was just fumbling the ball in Game 7. It was
he's trying to do too much though. That's what it was because he knew that Ben couldn't do it.
You think? Let me ask this: since the way personally that I was introduced to you was the infamous Jimmy Butler tweet, which I won't read it back, whatever. It's there. If you guys want to try to find it, go ahead and try to find it. I'm not doing anything, but
I'm gonna wear that on my chest the rest of my life.
If you do go out and find it though, go out and find the tweet where he apologized. So,
well, I've heard Austin apologize in a locker room with Philly Heat, who is now known as Sean. So I've heard him apologize. He's righted his wrongs, whatever it may be. I mean, it's not wrong. It's just an opinion at the time. And it blew up on Twitter. So credit to you. It did numbers on Twitter.
Do you know? And I only know this by my mom and dad telling me about this. Do you know if you Google my name, the first thing that pops up is Jimmy Butler or
oh my God,
Krell, Miami Heat. So I guess in some ways that's the world's way of telling me that that tweet is what made my name. Like I don't know. It's very odd and it's embarrassing, but at the same time, like who the hell even knows?
Yeah, it's fine. But I do want to ask this question: do you think Joel misses Jimmy Butler, especially after this series?
Yes, I do. But I would say this. Watching Jimmy Butler in not just in the last season, not as much, but more so this season, I have trouble buying that like the fit would have been seamless and perfect because Jimmy also had a regress as a jump shooter.
Oh yeah,
and he also didn't have a great playoffs either. And I wonder if if Jimmy's personality. I get it, like Jimmy and Joe are good buddies, so that works. Mm-hmm. But I just kind of wonder. Like, would that have really worked? Because if you recall, like the story came out about Jimmy in the locker room in Portland when he was a Sixer with Brett Brown, like that all. My this is partially sourced and partially like my own estimations. That Joel was the one that told Ramona Shelburne about it because he's a guy that's immensely respectful. his culture and his background, he always is one to listen and not question his elders. So when a guy like Jimmy Butler questions Brett Brown and is loud and is Jimmy Butler's personality towards Brett Brown, that rubbed Joel the wrong way. Even if it didn't last long term because Joel and Jimmy ended up being good friends. But I do wonder if Jimmy and Doc rifted and Joel liked Doc, how that would have played out as well. So I don't know. I mean, I think obviously if you on paper it sounds phenomenal, but I do think that Jimmy's regression is real and that happened, and I wonder if that would have affected things.
Yeah, it would have to make anything work in Philly with Jimmy. It would have had to have been Jimmy or Ben. I don't think you could have had both there.
Absolutely correct.
So, yeah. Anyways, I have been on Twitter for a very, very long time. So I do want to ask you this. I just received a text that says you used to be an owner of property in Miami. Is this still true?
No.
Okay.
I would guess this. I would guess that the fact that I am very good. I guess the fact that I am terrified of talking shit about the Heat on Twitter now.
Heat Twitter is ruthless. They really are. We have nothing better to do.
You don't want to cross them.
That they probably have real estate in my head now. But in all fairness to me, I do have a residence in Naples. So technically, I'm not that far off, but it was definitely a snide trolling effort by me back before I realized that I was
funny.
A real person. So
that's good. That's some good stuff. But okay, so I do want to get to the actual NBA playoffs because regardless of whether both of our teams are out, this playoffs has been personally fantastic to watch.
I love it. I love
it has been beautiful, beautiful, beautiful to watch. So, I mean, do you guys want to touch on series previews or kind of just recap what we just saw? Because we can go both ways here. Marco, I'll let you steer the conversation.
I actually like kind of taking a look back at what we've seen. It's the good and the ugly. The ugly Game 7s, you know, everybody loves ugly Game 7s. They're rock fights. They can't all be Spurs Heat 2013 Finals Game 7s. They all have to be their own little thing, and I love that. And I love that the league. I hate the ratings talk. All that garbage is like
trash.
I hate it. Yes, stop talking about ratings. You're not a billionaire. You don't care. Nobody cares. I just love the fact that any market has a star right now that they can showcase, and the NBA has a chance to showcase. The league's in a great place in terms of talent. The top end talent is so like 1 through 10 it's not 1 through 10 anymore. It's like an A tier, and that A tier is filled with like a bunch of different guys. I just love that it's spread out across the league so much now, and I love looking back at just where we've come in terms of from last year, how the bubble was great basketball. The atmosphere wasn't the same. I'm glad we're back to the atmosphere because that's been hearing the fans in Phoenix Sunday afternoon was one of my favorite games, going back and forth with Paul George and Devin Booker. I love the guys that are rising to the occasion. Like DeAndre Ayton has been like people have been like noticing how well he's been playing during the regular season now. Like this is the guy he's been all year, but people are just now noticing because he's been put on a bigger, I guess, pedestal now across.
I think it's because he's done it against greater, like bigger named competition. Because like Anthony Davis and then Nikola Jokic, and I mean, just to throw a stat out there, DeAndre Ayton's shooting 72% from the field in these playoffs.
Wow. That's nuts.
Like, he's shooting free throws for like that. That's what it looks like. Like he's ridiculously efficient. So I totally agree. I
want to ask who's been you guys' favorite like breakout kind of star like throughout the playoffs. I'll start with you, Ariel.
Has to be Devin Booker. Got to be Booker. I mean, what he's done. Look no further than Game 1 against the Clippers. Dude drops like a 40-point triple-double, makes 15 or 16 of 29 shots, absolutely dominates that game. Chris Paul, no Chris Paul. I get that Kawhi's out, but has to be Devin Booker. I think he's really taken that next step and is really asserting himself. It's good to see, man, because I feel like they got a little bit of a raw deal in the bubble last year. I understand that, like I get the whole viewpoint that if you don't make the playoffs, you don't make the playoffs. You didn't win enough games in the regular season, so it is what it is. You reap what you sow, but they did go 8-0, and if it's still not enough to make the playoffs, then why were they really brought back? So I love the acquisition of Chris Paul, obviously, and just to see them grow up and see him specifically grow up has been my favorite thing in the playoffs so far.
What about you, Austin? Do you have any guy that you've kind of loved seeing come up?
Book has been unbelievable. And I think like the coolest thing ever that I've learned from these playoffs is like everyone says like, oh, youth is a big factor against you. You have to be a veteran. Like, no, you have to own the moment. That's really what it comes down to is owning is having the mindset of I'm going to own the moment and not let the moment overwhelm me. And he has risen to the occasion. He's put on a show every night. And I'm sure I'm blanking on people here, but I think in my mind, Devin Booker might be the best shooting guard in the NBA.
Do you consider James Harden a shooting guard?
There you go. See, I blanked on somebody. So I do.
Well, I don't know. Honestly,
I do actually consider James Harden a shooting guard. I don't believe he's a point guard, but
do you consider Tyler Herro a shooting guard?
I mean, they did say that someone reported the Heat think that he's going to be Booker, which I mean, sure.
So I'd like to correct that right here because I've heard that many times before. What it actually was they asked him who he wanted to be or what player he wanted to be, and he said Devin Booker, and they said no, aim higher. We think you can be better.
So it's actually probably that now because
it's more egregious.
Devin Booker right now is everything you. He's honestly as close to a perfect young star as you could possibly ask for.
Yep. And you're seeing like he actually it's not even that he's trying on defense. He's defending now.
He's good. Yes, he is. He's taking that step defensively. It's crazy.
And in the same way that Drew Holiday has sort of quietly risen as a defender over the years, Booker, you can shake him off with an errant shoulder here and there, or you can use a screen to get over him. He is right back up in your grill. He's not getting caught on screens. If he gets blown by, he's still able to recover and get back right in front of you. Mm-hmm. He is showing that he cares and that he's a legitimate two-way superstar. And I love him. I love him. I love that entire team. I think they're an awesome team. Monty Williams, his wife passes away tragically in Oklahoma City. This is his next, and then he moved around a couple times, and now he's getting this job. Chris Paul is that guy who has the veteran superstar who only has, the championship missing from his resume. It's the perfect story for a small market team.
Yeah. Oh, this comment I do want to address because this is ESPN has irked me as I guess I've grown older a little bit. And I watch them and they're just no LeBron and they just start spewing hot takes. Like Devin Booker has been playing fantastic. These playoffs, he's gone against Nikola Jokic, LeBron, AD, whatever it may be. He's played against really good players and he's been one of the best players on the floor in these playoffs. He's averaging 29, 7.5, 5.5 on like 50% from the field in these playoffs, I think. He's playing unbelievable. We do not need to take a young player's success and try to compare it to someone like Kobe Bryant. That is something that just really, really pisses me off. We can't let this, Booker's like 24, 25 years old. He's coming into his own as a superstar. And immediately he has a fantastic game in game one, and he's the next Kobe. I just wish we would stop with those kinds of comparisons so early on because it is so frustrating to me. You can't just let Devin Booker be Devin Booker because who knows how good this kid is going to be. He is literally ridiculous right now with almost no flaws in his game. I just don't want to see him compared to anybody else. That just really pisses me off. Had to get that off my chest a little bit.
It's interesting because, if you think about it, part of the reason why Ben Simmons is so frustrating is everyone comparisons to LeBron or Magic or whatever. Like these are all comparisons that people made. So that was the inherently the way he was walking into the league as the next this or the next that. Mm-hmm. Just let guys be themselves. Like not everybody has to be the next Kevin Durant or the next LeBron or the next Kobe Bryant. Instead of giving these incredibly lofty, unlikely to be achieved goals, just let them blossom into their own player and be great.
Yes.
I feel like the reason that, networks such as ESPN most notably do things like that, specifically with players in smaller markets like Devin Booker and Phoenix, is in order to drum up more interest in their content, right? That's why, like you said, Gad, they're letting the hot takes fly because LeBron's not in the playoffs. Steph Curry's not in the playoffs. They don't have that to pioneer their shows. If LeBron sends out a tweet, they're going to lead off first take with that, right? So they've got to find other ways to drum up interest. And so for the casual fan who might not be quite as familiar with Devin Booker, though I don't know if that's so much the case anymore. I think he's really asserting himself like we've talked about. They've got to make outlandish comparisons and whatnot, like that one. I don't agree with it. I'm with you, Gad. I'm with you, Austin. I think it's nonsense, but I think that's the reasoning behind it for sure.
Manny, you got something to say. Welcome back.
I think it just comes down to also, guys, that after LeBron, who's the alpha male after that? Who's the one that's proven?
Take a look at that. Pick your poison with these playoffs. We've had like 6 guys step up.
You can say Steph Curry. You can say all these guys, but they want to – ESPN, the four-letter network, wants to create that talk, that thing that's going to create tweets. It's going to create some type of trend. So they're going to go ahead and, just like Amber pointed out, like the other day when they started to compare Donovan Mitchell to Dwayne Wade, I'm like, do you guys realize what Dwayne Wade did in 2006? The man was down in 2002 in an NBA final series and say, screw it, I'm going to put the team behind my back with Shaq, right? Like, I'm not saying that Mitchell couldn't do it this season because of injuries, but it's quite clear. There's nobody after LeBron that's yet proven, in my eyes, that can be that next, not king, because that's what they called them back in high school. But, I mean, they got to create something, right? Because it's getting to a point where there's a lot of young stars that we all love to see and watch, but these young kids, especially the younger generations, we had MJ and then we had LeBron. They've had LeBron, but they haven't yet had the next one. So for them, they're the ones waking up and clicking on YouTube and going on Twitter and creating all this content that they want to see. So that's what ESPN is going to give them, right?
I think we definitely know who the next guy is.
So can I ask?
I know to me it's Kevin Durant, but I mean,
I was going to say Luka. Luka's the next coming. I mean, it's a matter of
tell a young
lost
NBA
to the Clippers
fan
2 times in a row. I mean,
I don't know, but just tell a young NBA fan who Luka Doncic is, and he'll look at you like, "Who's that?" I swear, I 100%.
I feel like at this point, I don't know about that with Luka. Maybe like a year and a half ago, but I get what you're coming. I get where you're coming from, Manny. Like they do want that next specific star to reference. And Ricky with a great comment here. There's definitely a ton of guys that people are familiar with, but we're going to get a new champion this year. None of these teams have won a championship. None of these superstars have won a championship, at least recently. So we'll go around the horn here. Austin, we'll start with you. Who's the one superstar, whether it's older, younger, 29 years old, whoever it may be, who do you want to see win a championship this year, whether it's for narrative's sake, your own personal interest, or all of the above?
Suns and Chris Paul.
You want Chris Paul? So what do you want Chris Paul to win Finals MVP, or do you care if it's Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, Mikal Bridges, whoever it is? You just want the Suns to win?
Well, so Mikal Bridges went to my alma mater, so I am legally obligated to root for him.
I love Mikal Bridges.
Yeah, I Sixers had him, and then they didn't have him, and then they had a guy who I don't even. But
yeah,
I definitely I am rooting hard for the Suns. And Chris Paul, I think it's very unfortunate that he hasn't gotten a title yet. I think this is one of his best chances.
Yeah, definitely is. Ariel, who do you got? Who's your guy?
My guy in the East that I want to see win a championship is Solomon Hill, Heat legend. The guy in the West that I want to see win a championship has got to be Jay Crowder, man. I wanted it for Chris Paul. I wanted for Chris Paul, but
you and your goddamn agendas, Ariel.
Hey, that's literally my brand is the agendas. So in the West, it's got to be Jay. Yeah, I love Jay.
He was so good for the Heat last year. Like so underrated, so underratedly good.
Talk about opening up old wounds. Man, oh man.
Rebounds. He does all the little things. He's a glue guy. We don't have any glue in Miami right now. But anyways, Marco, who you got?
Cool. I guess for just a guy, I just want to see Monty Williams get a ring. I've read all the stuff he's been through. It's kind of inspiring that he brings it up, and he's not afraid to bring it up to the guys in the locker room. It's a part of his story, and it's like admirable, like that he brings that up to them without like breaking down. That's insane strength. And I'm rooting for the guy. Like, obviously Chris Paul's the injuries, the COVID stuff. Like, he got hit with the COVID stuff in the middle of the playoffs. He's the one guy that's been hit with it. It had to be Chris Paul. Like,
every year.
I hate it. Every year.
Said, like, in my head, I kind of said like anybody but him, and then I realized that sounded really messed up. So I was like, preferably nobody, but anybody but Chris Paul.
Yeah, it really sucks. He's been through this so many times.
Yeah,
I do want to address a comment I saw popped up by Amber about the mid-range. I don't think the NBA itself is killing the mid-range. I think the mid-range has actually become really valuable because it's a rare commodity to have a guy that can shoot that shot at such a high level. When you have two of those guys like Phoenix does, you're automatically put up into the elite level of shot creation in the league, because that's the shot that everybody's giving up, the three-point shot, and the layups are dying in a way because, well, not dying. I guess they're being taken away more by teams. Like, they're being scouted away. They're going to force you into that shot, and the more guys you have that can hit that shot, the better you're going to be off in the playoffs, because those shots are the ones they're going to give up. And when you have elite guys like that, Seth Partnow brings it up that it's not about the mid-range shot. It's about who's taking the mid-range shot. You don't see guys spotting up in the mid-range anymore. That's dead. Udonis Haslem taking mid-range shots. That's dead. Even though that was automatic for the longest time.
Udonis Haslem playing basketball is dead too.
Yeah. So I guess the mid-range died with him. The spot of mid-range. That's what's dead. I think the mid-range is valuable.
They gotta resign him
if he wants to.
The door is always open for him.
He'll be back if he wants to.
But
hey, man,
I just wanted to bring that up.
I know UD is like the pride and the heart and soul, but that was a really bad allocation of assets. And like, I'm sorry, but it was.
In what sense? In
terms of money, like that could have gone to another contributor.
We say Mo Harkless and Avery Bradley. I could care less what they do with the money. Give it to UD. I'd rather see him get it than somebody else.
That's what I'm saying. And realistically speaking, like how frequently, because I see this argument a lot, Austin. You're obviously not on an island with this one. This is like one of Heat Twitter's favorite things, but it's like my thing on it is how frequently does the last man on your roster, does the 15th man on your roster actually contribute? Like it'll happen here and there. You might find a diamond in the rough. Sure.
I also think it's even rare that the 15th man on the roster can give you an oral history of all of the championships that you've won.
That's true.
And I'm not saying he's old, but like it's valuable to be able to have somebody you can like look to for insight and commentary on what it took to win 3 different titles.
So that's exactly what part of it is that he's been there and done that. And so having him still, in there in practice, running, sweating with the guys behind the scenes, he has a certain level of, like a cachet, a certain level of respect amongst the players, even though everybody knows he's not going to play like at any point in the season almost.
Yeah. He's just a
Dwight Howard's on the
foul.
Yeah.
I did love his appearance against the Sixers. That was fantastic.
I was in the building for that one, and that was the energy in that building was just unreal when UD checked in because it's so unexpected. So I mean, I guess we're pretty much all on the Suns. Like I personally want to see CP3, Monty, but I want to see Booker win that Finals MVP because I want that stardom to become a thing. Because it isn't just CP3 the reason that the Suns are good. They're great coach. And they're a great team. Like they are built through and through. They're almost bulletproof in terms of how good they are. Like that team is really, really good. And it's not just CP3. You saw it in game 1 against the Clippers, although they missed Kawhi. That's still a really, really, really good Clippers team. But if we're talking about one individual player that I actually want to see outside of the Suns, I kind of want to say Giannis. I respect Giannis for staying in Milwaukee. This is Heat bias aside, because I can't do that right now. But seriously, Giannis being able to win that series, although it was against a bruised and battered Brooklyn Nets team, they weren't 100%, whatever. Giannis last year loses that series. And he's not the only reason they won, but he's the biggest reason. He averaged 34 and 14 over the last 5 games against the Nets. They went 4-1 in those games. I mean, he's kind of proving himself right if he makes it to the finals and wins a championship this year with that contract. So we'll see what ends up happening, but I would not be mad at Giannis actually winning the title after seeing what they did to the Nets and being able to win that game. That was kind of cool. I root for Giannis the person. I think he's actually a good guy. So I would be fine with him winning. Maybe I wouldn't be fine with Buck's Twitter winning, but that's a whole other discussion for another day.
Oh yeah, so I have no problem with anyone winning. I don't like it when their fan bases win. That's really
that's a caveat right there. They get I know if Heat Twitter last year was just absolutely top. We lost in 6 against the Lakers, and you could not say anything to the Heat because the cocky Heat fan was just in full effect. And now here we are, humbled with 40 days of rest already.
I don't know what you're talking about. I have the excuse machine locked and loaded. Speak for yourself.
Oh, we do have this comment from Rai Yui. I apologize. I probably botched that. But Bucks win, then Bud stays. And that's a win for the Eastern Conference because whatever you Budenholzer, I still am not in on him as a coach. He'll end up being the downfall for them someday, but maybe this isn't the year that he's the downfall. We're running on an hour here, so we're going to wrap up, but no Heat talk, actually, which is kind of disappointing, but it's fine. I don't want to put Austin through that anyways because we got the Sixers talk in. Probably the one time that we'll talk Sixers unless Austin's on with us again. But, Austin, it was a pleasure.
For a reason. Thank you for having me.
It was really a pleasure to talk about the ins and outs of what the actual Philadelphia beat writer is saying, and also find out that we all love the Suns here because we really, really do. But with all of that said, I believe we have – 1 second. Manny, I think we have a video that we need to play.
Oh, no.
We do, but I would like to do it with us saying bye to Austin because I know
Is
Austin.
this the video that I think it is?
No. No, it's an ad.
You're good.
You're good, Austin.
The Heat versus haters video.
No, there's no clown. We appreciate you being here. We would not do that. Austin, thank you very much. We're just gonna do an ad real quick. So if you want to check out right now, by all means. But thank you for showing up. It really was a good time. Hopefully everyone in the comments enjoyed as well. I personally had a good time. So on behalf of the other 3 with me right now and Manny in the background, thank you for joining us and gracing us with your Philadelphia presence.
Thanks,
and hopefully both teams, actually not both teams, hopefully the Heat are able to beat the Sixers 3 times next year. Unless we play in the playoffs, that'd be 7 times.
That'll surely do well for the Philadelphia mental health.
Definitely.
But thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks again,
of course. Thank you very much.
Anytime. Let me know.
Peace.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have one last ad, I believe. Man, if you want to put something, BUSR.com. So if you want to bet, you put a $100 deposit and they give you a $100 credit. And after we give this whole spiel, or I give this whole spiel, it will be the 5 reasons to bet video, which will actually tell you how to approach the Western Conference Finals, maybe the game tonight. Maybe if you want to go crazy, bet on the draft lottery, although that is some degenerate stuff right there, but I will not tell you what to do. Everyone's grown or not grown. Okay. So make sure you go to BUSR.com, $100 deposit, and they will give you $100 credit. So that's $200 to bet with right there. That sounds like a pretty good deal. And if you end up winning with that money, it's even more. So go ahead, watch this Western Conference video, get the bet, place the bet, make money. Very simple, BUSR.com/5RSN. With all that being said, thank you guys. Play the video, Manny.
All right, welcome into 5 Reasons to Bet here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel. I'm Ethan Skolnick, Jim Rodriguez. I don't know where he is. He could get run over by a truck at any minute. But if he does, he looks good. He's wearing that BUSR hat, BUSR.com/5RSN. I've got the shirt. I'll put it on a little bit later. Doesn't quite match with the other shirt I'm wearing. But there you go, BUSR.com/5RSN. $100 deposit. If you go to that link, you get $100. We're giving you $100. You have to go to that link. Don't go to other links, or else Jim gets run over by a truck. All right, let's get to NBA here today. The Western Conference Finals that everybody expected. The Clippers without Kawhi, the Suns without Chris Paul. For a second game, the Suns lead 1-0 in this series. As we know, the Clippers, they fall behind in series, they fall behind in games. So what do you like today?
Well, listen, first of all, I am in paradise. That's where I am. I've got my victory cigar ready to go because Clippers Suns. Now, the first game, the Suns were laying 4, and it took 2 late free throws by Phoenix to get that cover. I think it's going to be close. This morning, when I woke up and had my cafecito, the Suns were laying 5.5. I wanted no part of that. It has since gone down to the Suns laying 4.5. Still like first quarter and first half are exactly what you said. The Clippers are notorious slow starters. So the Suns are laying 1.5 for the first quarter. I'll take Phoenix minus that 1.5. And first half, the Suns are laying 2.5. I like the Suns in that. I think Phoenix is going to win the game. 4.5, maybe a little too rich for my blood. I think it's going to be close, but I'll take the Suns laying the 1.5 in the first quarter and laying 2.5 in the first half.
All right, so fast start for the Suns at home.